myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the...
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Monday night, which means it's the Steve and Holly show. Good evening, Holly.
Evening, Steve. How are you?
Very good. Good to see you. And as always, plenty to talk about. Not necessarily Newcastle United tonight, of course, but the Euros as well is well underway. And a great result for England yesterday. Not so good result for Scotland today. And a middle-of-the-road result for Wales. So mixed bag for the home nations. But as always, we'll be taking your questions and answering your questions as well. So whatever you want to talk about, fire away. We will surely bring up some stuff ourselves as well. I have stuck some stuff on the Facebook group. A couple of polls went up today. And the first one is, would you offer Andy Carroll a new contract? Which is one of the things I want to ask Holly tonight. I'll keep checking back on the results for that. And another one, which is going to be a regular feature on here, is this. So the big question that Holly and I are going to ask you tonight is, what is the best Newcastle United celebration ever? Now, I've stuck 4 potentials on the Facebook group page for you to vote for. So in no particular order, I have gone for Kevin Nolan's chicken celebration. I've also put that down as Robbie Elliott's chicken celebration because he did do that at Arsenal back in the day. Next up, Tino's cartwheel, which of course many of us who watched the Entertainers era will remember. Third, Ketspire ripping his top off and kicking the Hordens at the Gallagher end. And last but by no means least, Big Al, the Hand. So there we go. That's your big question for this week. It's on the Facebook group page. So if you want to get involved, there's a poll up there now. Get your vote in. Let us know who you want to vote for as far as that's concerned. And also on the Andy Carroll situation, which we'll start with Holly. Holly, what's your thoughts on this? Because we jokingly said, about this at the end of the season, that, we talked about it, but we expected him to go. And then I think we covered it on a show where we thought he'd gone. But now there's talk, potentially, of him being offered a new contract. What's your thoughts on that? And, would you give him a new contract?
It doesn't surprise me if he does get a new contract, to be honest. I think it's quite typical of Newcastle. We just fill up the squad with these players that are just kind of wasted, taking up space and taking up money that isn't there. And I don't understand, but the club's been ran poorly for a long, long time, which we all know now. Andy Carroll, I wouldn't have gave him a new contract because of Steve Bruce. I think he had his chance to play him this year. He never did play him. So why would you keep him on this season? Because I doubt that he's going to get that game time again. Otherwise, we would have seen him play previously, which he didn't do. I can understand in a way why they do it if they're looking to sell on Dwight Gale, because then we kind of be left with Wilson, and obviously we know that Wilson is struggling with injuries and things like that, which can easily happen again. So I understand why he would be there, but for me, I'd rather just spend a little bit of money trying to get someone half decent in rather than just re-signing these players that are past it. And, we all love Andy Carroll. He's a local lad. We want him to do well, but his time's gone, unfortunately, at the club. And I feel like since he's joined the club now, it's kind of ruined the memories that we had of him back in like the 2009-10 kind of times when we all loved Andy Carroll. But now he's just not that player anymore, and I really feel like it's tainting the memories that he had at Newcastle. I don't know if you feel the same, Steve. Do you feel the same about that?
Yeah, I do. I just, it's well publicised on here. I said he was a publicity stunt when he signed, and I wasn't keen on him coming back. And I mainly because of the amount of game time he'd had at his previous clubs. And, he'd spent a lot of time injured, and I just personally felt it was a publicity stunt to try and appease the supporters, and it backfired for me. I don't think, he would get much game time if the worst happened and the takeover didn't go through before the start of the season and Steve Bruce was here. I don't think Steve Bruce would play him anyway. And Look, it's not up to Steve Bruce, who he signs. It's up to Mike Ashley, Lee Charnley, and whoever's making those decisions about the checkbook. But if Lee Charnley feels that Andy Carroll is worth a punt for another year on a pay as you play deal, 20 grand a week basic, which is what he was on, then I'm afraid that's what we'll end up with. If we're going to be short on the centre forward front, I don't know. It's really disappointing that we should even be talking about this. For me, I wish Andy all the best. I hope that he goes on and becomes a coach, because I'm sure that his time in football will I think that's probably, by reading reports, that's what he would like to do. I'm sure he's learned enough from some of the managers that he's been involved in to give something back to the game. And good luck to him. He's certainly made good money out of football, and he's got security for him and his family. But as for pulling on the black and white shirt for Newcastle again, I just don't see it. I really don't. And I think takeover goes through, we'll be aiming a lot higher. Takeover doesn't go through, I just can't see Steve Bruce playing him. I mean, would you like to see him come back as a coach? I mean, do you think having a local lad like that would be good on the old, on the coaching staff side of things?
Yeah, I would like to see Andy Carroll on the coaching staff, but only if we were stuck with the current regime. I don't think I would take him under new ownership, because I think we'd be aiming slightly higher and we could get better people in. And I would like to see local players come, but I think there is a higher standard of local players that we've had in the past from the 90s and the Keegan kind of era that would love to come back to the club, that would do a better job than Carroll. But certainly if it was still under Mike Ashley, then I would definitely take him.
Well, the poll has been a big success already. Would you give Andy Carroll a new contract is the question we asked. A resounding 228 votes so far saying no. 45 people think we should give him a chance. And 26 people think, and this has been added by Nicky Watt, because you can't add your own options, yes, if they actually plan to use him effectively. But that's a majority, 228 votes. I can't see that picking back up. Most people think he should go. And just out of interest on the goal scoring celebration, who do you think's ahead so far?
I think it's Tino Asprey.
Oh, it's not. It's Big Al. But very close. It's very close between those three, Shearer, Ketzbauer and Tino. Although Brian Standen has added his own option of Mirandina in front of the Kop at Anfield, which of course was well-renowned when we won 2-1. Willie McFall got sacked the week after we lost 3 or 4-0, I think it was. But when Mirandina scored at the Kop, he allegedly threw his V's up. I still think he was celebrating in a particular way, but a lot of people said he was sticking the fingers up at the Kop. So, keep those votes coming in. Join the Facebook group, NUFC Matters. Just search for that on Facebook if you're on there, and get your votes in, and we'll keep you updated on tonight's big question. Okay, Holly, I'm ready for your big question. To me, what have you got to ask me tonight?
The first topic that I had was, I know we touched on it on the Euro show that we did yesterday, but it was mainly the Christian Eriksen thing. I didn't say a great deal on it because I do have quite a strong opinion on that. I want to kind of save for this show, but mainly just your opinion on kind of how the TV, like the BBC and the TV companies, kind of handled that situation, and also the fact that the game was rescheduled for a couple of hours after the incident took place. Just what you thought of that, because I felt quite strongly about what happened.
Should you say that again? Because I got completely, one of my kids came in and I got completely distracted. Sorry, Holly.
It's all right. It was just basically what you thought about how the TV companies handled that situation with Christian Eriksen, and also the fact that the game was rescheduled a couple of hours after it happened. Yeah,
I mean, I was disappointed to see the game get rescheduled. I've got to be honest, I understand that, TV companies and sponsors have a huge role to play in these kind of tournaments, but it left a little bit of a sour taste in the mouth, and I'd be interested to know, and I don't think we'll ever find out, what the squad and the team thought of it, because I was amazed at how, they pulled together, from the captain to the keeper to the manager to everybody, they were so quick. They realised the danger. They got him in the recovery position. They got his tongue out of his mouth and they got him there. And I mean, those were harrowing pictures, Holly. He was gone, and I mean, the subsequent news reports have told us that. But I watched that live and I went, he's dead. I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him pulling through. But when the CPS took place, again, we saw all of this. I thought there's a fighting chance here, But the longer it went on, I think, like everybody else watching, I feared the worst. But I think the team cannot be, you cannot be focused, because as soon as that happens to a player on the pitch, and thank God it doesn't happen very often, you can't be focused on the game ahead. All your preparation's gone, it's out the window. And even though the players will be fully aware that he has made a recovery of such, i.e. he's breathing and he's on the breathing apparatus, his eyes are open and he is being carried away to medical attention, they can't, stop the natural human reaction, which is to worry about it and worry about him and hope that he's going to be okay. And all kinds of thoughts go through people's minds, because they'll be thinking, well, it could be me, especially the fact that we're living through a pandemic. I mean, yes, I think most people watching that would assume probably his heart, or is it a stroke? It's one of those two things. Is it a brain aneurysm? You know what I mean? We're not doctors, but you look at these things and you think, is this what's happened? But again, with COVID, people could be thinking, well, is it down to COVID? It's that kind of situation. And the point I'm trying to make, and I'm probably labouring on that a little bit too much, is that essentially players just can't prepare for the game after that. So to ask them to come back and answer your question, I think it was ludicrous them playing. And I think it's given them an unfair disadvantage, because I think they probably would have been able to win that game at a later date. Once they knew that Eriksen was fine and he'd recovered, that they could, they could then go on and do it, and they could have played it the next day. They could have done that, no problem. But they've trained and they've played friendlies with Eriksen in that side and Eriksen in mind, and he's a linchpin in that team. He's been a linchpin of the teams that he's played in, and I just think it was unfair. I think it was unfair. I hope they get through. I do hope they get through. Really, just for him, but I just think that was really unfair. As for the TV coverage, I can completely get where people are coming from, because ultimately, yes, there is a stream that comes through from, it's one stream provided to all countries. I fully get that. But there was nothing stopping the BBC pulling the plug on the coverage. There was nothing stopping them doing that. And I'm not one of these people who jumps on the networks and the television channels, etc. I understand, a lot of people got issues with the BBC or like to shout their mouth off on social media about the BBC. But I pay my license and I watch the BBC. They have some fantastic dramas, some fantastic documentaries. I've always watched the BBC. I don't get sucked into the stuff. And some of the stuff that's gone on behind the scenes at the BBC is absolutely disgraceful, and rightly so. People should attack that, I think, raise their concerns about it. But yeah, I just felt, I felt it was wrong that they didn't shut that off. And I've watched TV. I remember a programme, and probably some of the older viewers will remember Noel Edmonds used to do a Saturday night show. And there was a tragic accident on one of those Saturday night shows. And he really, I think the guy died, if I remember rightly. And we were watching it on national TV, and the feed just got cut. And then it was like a test card or whatever you want to call it. There's been an interruption. We'll be back soon. You knew something tragic had happened. But, there is somebody somewhere who can always pull the plug. Even further back, Tommy Cooper, well-known comedian. He was live on television and he died on stage. He died doing his show on television. Program was cut. And I remember that as a kid. I remember watching this. Tommy Cooper was a big favourite of everybody's. Everybody used to watch him. And he died on TV. But again, the thing was cut. So to say that you couldn't cut it is a load of rubbish. And I think it was a disgrace, really, that they showed that. And I mean, I don't make any bones about it. I actually cried when I watched that, because I thought I was watching a football. I'd die on television. And that isn't entertainment. That macabre. It's not nice at all to see that kind of thing happen, and it's a human emotion. I think anyone watching that who wasn't moved, and you could see the people in the crowd, reacting exactly the way we would react if it was one of our players. But I just think, I think bad taste by the BBC for that, and an unfair advantage for Denmark. Great question. What's your answer? And sorry it took us 2 goes. All businesses resumed at the house now. This is the thing. People think I'm at St James's Park. I'm actually in my kitchen, as I think I've told people before.
No worries. So I did have quite strong views on it. I mean, I just thought, I was the same as you. I was really, really emotional. I was watching it live. It was horrible to see. And starting off with obviously the TV companies that were putting that on telly, I think that, okay, at first they might not have realised how severe it was. It was very quick and sudden, and they might not have realised exactly how bad the situation was, so they started filming it. But then I think pretty quickly people realised there was something quite serious when all of the squad came round and covered over Christian Eriksen, and we all realised, yep, he's really unwell here. And then they continued filming him and like zooming in on the situation. I thought that was appalling. I think nobody needed to see that. It was quite distressing. And also, there's no dignity there for Eriksen. I mean, no random person on the street would want to be filmed in that situation. So why is it okay to film a footballer? I just thought that was like kind of like a double standard thing, just making footballers seem like they're not humans. They're just there for public view, and their own personal kind of feelings don't really matter. It's just whatever the crowd wants, which I just think is disgusting. And it was just awful to see that. I know that the footage was apparently from UEFA, not the BBC, but like you said, Steve, there was no reason why they couldn't have just cut it off there and then and went back to the studio, because it was just appalling. And zooming in on his wife as well, who was clearly distraught, as anyone would be in that situation. I mean, that's just disgusting. There's no excuse for it whatsoever. And I think you could just see how distraught everyone was, and to do that was just totally uncalled for. But then, hats off to the Denmark squad, though, because they were so excellent in that situation. I don't know how they reacted so well. There was obviously they were panicked, but they tried to remain really, really calm, and they completely did the right thing in that situation. And I think they're a credit to their country. I'd love to see them do well in this tournament. And it's just unfortunate that they did end up going on to lose that game, which you can imagine. I mean, I agree with you, Steve. I think it was shocking that the game was put on the same day. It was really distasteful. In my opinion, they said that it was the players who wanted to play the game. They asked to play the game. For me, I think they were probably pressured into it and told to shut up and not say anything. I don't think the players would have went to UEFA and said, we want to play this game. I just can't imagine that. I think they were bullied into it. Because nobody would want to be. I mean, I've never seen CPR in real life or anything like that, thank God, but I know people that have, and everyone says how traumatizing and distressing it is, and they wouldn't have been in the right frame of mind. I just thought it was shocking, yet again, showing that football is all about money. It's just for the wealth of a few greedy individuals. It's not for the fans whatsoever. It's not for the country. They'll just do anything for a few quid, even when people's lives are concerned, and it's absolutely disgusting, to be honest. But thank God Christian Eriksen's recovered now. I wish him all the best. I hope he does go on to get back to full fitness, but just thankfully that his life saved, and obviously best wishes to him and all of his family. But disgusting the way that situation was handled, but excellent by the team and obviously the fans as well, who united singing his name in the ground. That was lovely to see as well.
Yeah, and let's hope he gets a full recovery. Although after Muamba's, unfortunate incident, exactly the same. He never played football again, so I would imagine it would be, pretty much the same for Eriksen. So, Bobby, good evening. Scott from Skips and Bins, he says, should Lua's backflip should have been in the shortlist? There's plenty that could have been. I mean, we could have had Obafemi Martins, who used to do a version as well of Tino's cartwheel. But yeah, I mean, look, there's plenty. And if you want to get on the Facebook page, add yourself to the group, NUFC Matters. You can add your own option. But I think that the ones that are up there already have got an unfair advantage. Okay, another story that's hit the papers and hit the press this week is this chap, Jack Wilshere. Not for the first time, he has been linked with a move to Newcastle United. And a lot of people saying that we should get him, including Steve Howie, obviously ex-Newcastle and former England international. Look, Jack Wilshere, he's had an injury-ridden career, I would have said. He is a decent player, but for me, again, I mean, this just comes down to what we've talked about with Andy Carroll. The guy's a lot more experienced and I would say had a lot more success and certainly had a lot more match hours. But he'll be on a big wage, and how many games are you going to get out of him? And is he really the kind of player that we want to come to the club? And is he somebody that Steve Bruce would get the best out of? I don't see the logic in it. I'm hoping to get Steve Howie on the show this week and ask him about this, because there is always the potential that he's being misquoted, which, I don't trust the newspapers full stop, especially during transfer window time. But for me, it's no. And I said this the last time he got announced, the last time he got mentioned, the last time he got linked. I said no. I wouldn't take Jack Wilshere at all. I just don't think he's a fit with Newcastle. I don't think he would want to come here. I really don't. Certainly not under this regime. I think every man and his dog will want to come to Newcastle if the takeover goes through before the transfer ends. Yep, even Mbappe, you never know. But joke. But yeah, I can't see Jack Wilshere wanting to come, and I just think it's another story that's been put out there, and it's been given a bit of credence because Steve Howie's been, had his name attached to it. But as I say, I don't think that will be too genuine. I think it'll be an off the cuff comment from Steve, and it's been made into a story just to get clicks and likes again. What's your take on Jack Wilshere? Would you have him?
No, not for me. I think I agree with everything that you've said. He's just someone that is injury prone. You're probably not going to get much game time out of him, and also I'd imagine he would be on quite high wages as well. And I just think he'd be another striker that sits on the bench, doesn't really play very often, and Steve Bruce would probably pick Joe Linton ahead of him, even though we all know that he's not a striker. So just another wasted player at the club. To be honest, I think that there'd be other clubs for him that he'd get more game time and more success at, which he'd probably prefer to go to, which is fair enough, because I'd do the same if I was him. But not for me, no, at Newcastle. I think we need to be shopping for a player that's on the younger side as well. And I think the best place for us to look is in the foreign market rather than in the UK, because players are cheaper and there's also a lot of undiscovered talents in there. I mean, we've got so many players that have came from abroad, especially what Rafa Benitez signed, the likes of Dubravka, who's obviously playing now for Slovakia, and he's one of our star players, and you always get them for a decent price. So that's where I'd be looking for me, but not Jack Wilshere. I wouldn't be signing him personally.
No, well, that's a resounding no from me as well. So let's hope that that doesn't come into fruition over the next couple of months. But we'll wait with bated breath. All right, Holly, what's your next question for me?
So the Euros, I know that you probably were planning on talking about kind of the England game later, but I'll touch on it slightly now. I think a lot of us felt our chances were maybe not that high at the start of the tournament because we didn't do that well in the friendlies. We played pretty poor, and I don't think a lot of us were expecting to get a result against Croatia, although I did back us for a 1-0 and that did end up happening. Has your opinion changed at all? Do you think we've got a higher chance of going further in this tournament now? To be honest, I think we can win all 3 games at this point.
Yeah, look, I mean, I watched the game, and I'm not a huge England fan. I'll watch the important matches. I dipped in and out of some of the friendlies. I was surprised that I'm surprised at the squad that he picked. But Southgate works with the players. We don't work with the players. We don't see what they're doing in training. I still think he's made a mistake with the lack of strikers that he's taken, but I don't know. It's really strange. The World Cup, when we got to the semis, was a big surprise, and we really overachieved, I thought. But to beat Croatia like we did, it wasn't an entertaining game to watch. There was few chances in the game, but England took the chance through Sterling, and it was a good goal. We defended well, which I didn't expect us to do with Mings certainly in there. I prefer Connor Cody to Mings. But Southgate got it right. And his job is to win games and take each game as it comes. He's made a big point in the build-up to talking about squad morale and how well the team gets on, and even alluded to the fact that his squad was picked on that kind of basis, that he brought in, or he took some players, simply because of that. And I get that. I've managed at a very low level myself for 20 years, and I understand how important it is to have characters in the dressing room and people around the squad. Whether that's the person who carries the water bottles or does the line for you on a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon, it's important to have people around the team who they get on with and get on with. So, players in that situation as well are just as important. So I get it. Am I any more confident after that result yesterday? No. There's a tendency to get carried away with England. It's very like supporting Newcastle, but just in that shorter time frame. You don't have to go 38 games to suddenly build up some false hope, because it's tournament football, and you're not even playing 10 games to maybe get to the final, and ultimately a win can suddenly make you feel like world beaters, and a defeat can make you feel as if you're going home in that first game. But we all know things can turn around, and if England were to get beaten against Scotland, after watching Scotland, I would seriously doubt it. But if they were to get beat off Scotland, then depending on the other results, it's all on the last game, and you're suddenly scratching your head, and it's a nightmare again. But I don't know. There's something about Southgate as a manager, and I listened to Alan Shearer yesterday doing his half-time analysis or his pre-match analysis. I can't remember which it was. And Alan always speaks a lot of sense for me. And he just said that Gareth wasn't a big talker in the dressing room. He wasn't a big leader in the dressing room. But when he does speak, he speaks very clearly and sensibly. And I think that's good, because it gets the message across, I heard a few rumours about Southgate and Middlesbrough not doing the team talks. I don't know how true that is. But there's something about him. And whether you agree with taking the knee or not, and I've seen once again, it's in the chat today. We talked about that last week, and I'd rather not get into that this week. But taking the knee, I think, overshadowed our build-up, because it became a huge talking point, and Southgate had to come out, and rightly so. But the way that he came out and talked about it was really eloquent. He explained it, and he laid it down on the line. This is what we're doing. Yeah, and if you don't like it, I'm afraid, that's your problem, not our problem. And I thought he handled it brilliantly. So if that's what he's like, explaining tactics and talking to the team, you never know. You never know. It could be a decent tournament for us. I always feel you've got to win the Euros first. If you're going to win if you win the Euros, you've got a better chance of winning the World Cup. We had an easy run to the World Cup semis last time. This time it's quite tough. If we're going to get to the final of this competition, it's going to be tough. And I still think our biggest threat is going to be Belgium. I think Belgium's always the team bit of a bogey team for us. I think a lot of that's down to the fact that Martinez manages them and knows the Premier League inside out. But I think Belgium's the big bogey team for us. I think we'll go further than I expected. I think we'll get through the group no problem. I think we'll beat Scotland, and I think we're into the next stage. And I think we could get to the semis. I'm not going to say we're going to get to the final. I'm certainly not going to say we're going to win it. I think Belgium's a better team, and I think if they're in the final or in the semi-finals against us, I don't know how the draw works to that point, but I think Belgium will beat England again, and I think that'll be our bogey team. So, if we can avoid Belgium before we get to the semis or the final, there's a potential of doing that. But I think if we play Belgium, we'll get beat. What about you?
I don't think we'll get to the final either. I do think we'll do better than I originally expected, because I think that the Croatia game was probably one of the hardest in the group stages that we had, and I was quite worried about Scotland as well, because when it's a derby game, it can go one way or the other, can't it? It doesn't necessarily go on who's the better team normally, but after watching Scotland today, I think we should comfortably win, to be honest. I'm probably going to predict about a 3-0 win, because the quality just wasn't there, and I think we will do pretty well in the tournament, to be honest. I was heavily critical of Gareth Southgate's squad selection at first, because especially when he left Grealish out of that side. I think he'd be one of my first names on the team sheet, and he just doesn't seem to want to play him. Then putting other players in that maybe you would question, the centre-back pairing. I wasn't a fan of that, but the result ended up coming off, so you've got to give Gareth Southgate praise there. And yeah, it is like Steve Bruce with Newcastle. Sometimes we criticise his squad selection, then he ends up getting a result, and you think, well, fair enough then. But one player in particular that I did want to ask you about, though, was Harry Kane, because I know that you're quite a big fan of his. You said you'd sign him after a takeover, which I did agree with, but that game I thought he looked really, really off the mark. He was slow, he was sluggish, he was playing so deep. It was unreal. He didn't even look like a striker. And I'm starting to wonder now, is he starting to kind of slow down? Is he just not going to be the player that he was? And obviously they'll be leaving Spurs on his mind. I don't know whether he's going to be maybe kind of slowing down and just we're not going to see the player that he was. Maybe that's how I'm feeling, which is a worry because he's the main striker in that side as well. So what did you think of Harry Kane?
Yeah, it wasn't his best game, and I think Alan Shearer touched on this on the coverage that it wasn't Harry Kane at his best, but I would agree with what they said again in the sense that it means that there's more to come from him. Maybe the team wasn't set up as well for Kane as it was for Sterling, and I get the fact that Sterling hasn't had a great end to the season. And to see him score, and again, I hadn't realised because I'm not such a follower of the England scene and the England team. This was his first actual goal in a big competition. And the amount of goals he scores at club level, and I've seen him score for England, of course, but not realising that he hadn't actually scored in a big competition like the Euros or the World Cup. So, yeah, I just think it was set up more for Sterling yesterday. There'll be bigger games to come. I expect to see him score against Scotland. I think it's a formality. But yeah, I think as well, you're right. I think that his transfer or his forthcoming transfer out of Spurs is going to be clearly on his mind. And it's difficult to shake that kind of thing off. All of the press will be asking him, any news or any decisions. He'll be getting phone calls, I'm sure, from his agent about potential deals. But ultimately, he's got to focus on England, and he captains the team as well. He's got to be a leader. But I think he'll be fine. I think he'll get back to scoring ways. But it was a game of few chances. There wasn't many chances in that game yesterday, and that's for both teams. The way that the setup was quite defensive, and I think Southgate clearly had his mind on the damage they did against them in the semi-finals, and he'll have wanted to get one over on them, but he went for more of a defensive option. It was interesting yesterday as well to see Graham Jones on the sideline. I think I managed to capture a photo when I put the tweet out yesterday of Southgate looking at him, and it was quite similar to when Steve Bruce looked at him. Hold on a minute, I'm the England manager. Yeah, but it wasn't like that. It was just the way that I caught him. But it was just good to see Graham Jones on the sideline, as it was good to see JC, John Carver, standing next to Steve Clarke today. It's nice to see people who well, I know JC well. Good to see him, getting that opportunity. Bad result for them, poor performance, but just nice to see something going right for him. But yeah, look, it's an interesting one with Harry Kane, and the options we've got, because we've decided only to take three strikers, are they're fairly limited. If Harry Kane doesn't score against Scotland, they'll be saying it's a crisis. And I mean, he was the golden boot. He was the top goal scorer, wasn't he, for the World Cup a couple of years ago? So people will be saying he's had a bad tournament, etc. But no, I would say that he'd probably get a few goals, and I would still take him at Newcastle, Holly.
Yeah, I don't think we turn him down, especially at the moment, but I can't see him coming to Newcastle anytime soon. But yeah, I do agree. I think that Kane's probably just had a bit of an off match and he will come back into form. I have a feeling he's going to go abroad, to be honest, which I'm not going to complain at because I'm so scared of him taking Shearer's record. I don't want it to happen.
God, I hope so. Yeah, that's what everybody would be hoping. I think secretly anyway. All right, big shout out to our sponsors. Big shout out to Spider VPN. If you just Google Spider VPN, that will come up at the top of the Google list search, and they will help you protect your internet security and protect your passwords and protect all of your browsing history. So just Google Spider VPN. They are the boys to trust. Skipsandbins.com as well. They have sponsored us again for another month. Looking forward to catching up with the guys from Spider and Skips and Bins later this week. Skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy, contract free and pay as you go waste collection. And so Bobby is in the chat tonight, so say hello. qtechshop.co.uk as well. Big shout out to John and the lads down there, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle, and to John at Jab Signature. They're both linking up this week, so I hope to have a jolly good time. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right hand corner, and that's it. You subscribe for free. At the moment, we are still doing 7 shows a week and a few little extras to boot. So get yourself onto the channel, subscribe so you don't miss out. Hit the thumb up to like this video, which does us a big favour, and click share to share it to your social media. And click into the comments box as well to meet like-minded Newcastle fans. And we have a great bunch of people in there who usually are on most nights. Big shout out to everybody in the chat, and thank you as always for your support. We'll never take it for granted. If you want to catch up when you're out walking the dog or out for a nice walk while the weather's nice, you can catch us on our podcast variations as well. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, and the rest. Just search for NUFC Matters. And don't forget our website, nufcmatters.com, run by QTech. If you want to buy a t-shirt, the cult t-shirt is the one to get. Everybody seems to like that one. And Tuesday night, although we will be looking at having a little bit of time off at some point, will be me and Liam tomorrow at 6 o'clock talking transfers. Wednesday night, retro night, always one of my favourite shows. Looking back on days gone by, we're looking at Charlton Athletic on Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to that. There's some cracking players to mention on that one. Thursday night, Supermac and Gibbo. And then Friday night, we're back to the Three Amigos. This week's Fab Four, is pre-recorded though, because we are all on a night out on Friday. So it'll be a pre-record on Thursday, and so the Fab Four will be put out on Friday night at the usual time of 5:30. But we're all out watching England-Scotland, I'm afraid. So that's our night sorted. But we're still doing the show for you. We're just going to record it on Thursday night. Okay, lots of questions coming in the chat. Chris McCarthy says, Holly, evening Holly, evening Steve, what do you both think of rumours about £50 million? Last week it was 12 million. If we have 50 million, how do you both spend it? Willock's a must, even at 30 million for me. Great question, Chris. What's your thoughts on Holly? If it is 50 million now and not 12 million, would you waste 30 million or spend 30 million on Willock?
30 million, no. I think that's too much for Willock, considering we didn't even get the full half a season out of him. Yes, he did brilliantly in the games that he did play, but he's not proven enough to fork out the likes of 30 million for me. And I think we've already wasted enough money when we signed the likes of Joe Linton for 40. I don't want to take that risk again. 20 million, yes, I would pay 20, but no more than that, really. I think it would be just a bit too much to ask from, because he's really not that proven. And I don't think Arsenal would turn 20 million down, to be honest. I think they would accept that, but I'm not sure Newcastle even cough up that amount of cash. But I can see us getting him on another loan deal, to be honest, which I would happily take with an option to buy, because it's just, I don't think that Willock's going to be a one-season wonder at all, but there's always that risk there. And when you pay 30 million, it doesn't work out. It's not really something that you want to happen. I think we've wasted enough money in the past few years. Yeah,
I would agree. 30 million for Willock. I mean, he was a big player. It's a tough one. If the takeover doesn't go through, 30 million will be my final offer for Willock. In today's market, it's going to be the going rate. But there's no guarantee that he's going to be the exact player that he was when we took him on loan. He was here to impress. Some players, when they get a move, aren't the same player that you looked at. And we've made this representation about Kennedy before, made the point about Kennedy, came back for that second period and he was awful. So yeah, it's a gamble. I think there'll be players who we'll get rid of. There's already players gone off the wage bill, which will give us a little bit more cash. But I just hope we're not shopping in Poundland. I hope we're shopping in Harrods. But Yeah, good question. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't go over 30 million. Then it just leaves us 20 million pound and the rest and a bit of wheeling and dealing. It just doesn't bear thinking about. Andrew says, with a terrible situation with Ericsson the other day, it brings well-being of players into the conversation as the heat will be extreme in Qatar. What should be done to help the players? Holly, Qatar, this World Cup. I mean, it's talk about backhanders to get a tournament. It's going to be ridiculous. It really is. The temperature out there for players. They think it's bad in England. Yes, for England, heard them complaining about the sun. They've seen nothing yet if they get out there. But yeah, I mean, what should be done to help the players, do you think?
Well, there's not a great deal you can do. Obviously, you can't just make the sun go away. It probably wasn't the best choice to play in kind of the height of summer in Qatar. But I think it's just got to be a case of allowing time for drinks breaks, allowing more subs maybe, but then that can be seen as unfair because some squads don't have as much squad depth as others. Like there's some squads that have absolute talented players on the bench that could go into a first 11 team, no problem. And then there's other players that outside their first 11, they don't really have any decent players. So it could be seen as unfair, but I think it's just going to have to be allowing more subs. I don't think there's much more you can do than that, to be honest. Is there anything you could think of?
Not really. Plenty water breaks, I think. But other than that, it's ludicrous. I think they should change it. I just don't understand why on earth they're playing it in Qatar. I think it's absolutely stupid. I don't even know what the seasons are like. I mean, is it just permanently hot? Is there a cooler period that they can play? And maybe have to be a break in the Premier League season and seasons around the world to get it fitted in. But they need to do something like this because it's not going to be good for anybody's health at all. We're getting lots of comments about the situation with Ericsson. Chris said it was not the player's choice to finish that night. UEFA only gave tonight or tomorrow as options, so they were given options according to Chris. Tom says, according to Peter Schmeichel, UEFA told the Danes play the game or forfeit the game 3-0. I mean, that's a disgrace if that is the case. Rachel, thanks for the update. She says that stage 4 of the roadmap's been delayed until the 21st of July. I think we all knew that was coming. Vaccination has been rolled out to 23 and overs as of tomorrow, which is great news. Thanks for giving us the update, Rachel. Would have caught up with that, but thank you. Dino says Ericsson probably would have wanted the game to be played. Yeah, I'm sure he would have, but probably not straight after. I mean, honestly, the whole situation was awful. Donald says the BBC should have cut to the studio a lot quicker. The Danes would not have been in the best frame of mind after that Ericsson incident. Tom Dixon says Southgate out. We've just won, man. Where you go? Come on, man. Kenneth Bain says, exactly agree with Steve's point. Despite knowing he's okay, the mind naturally focuses on the actual incident. The image of him collapsed going through the head of the whole team. Yeah, I mean, that is 100% true. It really is. And Jeff's reminded it was Noel's house party. Never recovered from that. Yeah, that was what it was. It was a live thing involving a crane and a helicopter or something, if I remember right. I can't exactly remember what it was, but it was absolutely awful. Dave Harrison says some people on Twitter having a go at the BBC about the shadow at Wembley, but they should have cut the feed. So lots of comments coming in about that. Stu, as always, straight to the point, says Jack Wilshere's never fit. He's another crock of crap.
To be honest, I agree with him.
Chris McCarthy fears the worst, Holly. He says, no, Mike Ashley, Carroll will get a 5-year deal and Jack Wilshere a 10-year deal. Why do we waste so much money and wages on players who are always injured? Which, again, is a good point. Colin then says, Holly, do you think it's a good time to offload Joe Linton? Get a bit of cash back. What about a bid for Burnley centre forward, playing alongside Callum Wilson? That would be a very strong front two. I think yes, I would get rid of Joe Linton now if we could. We're never going to get 40 million back from him, but he's proved that he can play. And I presume the player he's talking about getting in is Chris Wood, who I think I've mentioned before. Rafa wanted originally, but couldn't be sure that if he offloaded Mitrovic, he would get the money to spend on Wood. So he has been a target in Newcastle in the past. Would I sign Chris Wood? If it was under Steve Bruce and we had him alongside Wilson, yeah. But again, I think we'll be aiming a lot higher if the takeover goes through. What's your take, Holly, on that question?
Joe Linton, if we could get rid of him for a decent price, then yeah, I would. but I don't think we'd get much money for him because he'd be on that much wages as well. He'd be demanding a lot of money in wages, so I don't think clubs could really afford to fork out a big transfer fee. And I think you'd be looking at no more than 10 million you could get from really, which I would take, to be honest, but I just can't see anyone really wanting to sign him at the moment. Burnley centre forward, I wouldn't take him even under Steve Bruce because I just think it's another one of those players that are just so boring, kind of awful to watch. I mean, no disrespect to him or anything like that, but I just think we've got so many players like that within the squad in different positions that are just like a 5 out of 10 kind of steady Eddie type of player, and I'm just so bored of them. I want someone a bit new, a bit exciting. Yes, if it's under Mike Ashley, we are going to have to go for the cheaper end, but Chris Wood, not for me. I just, even like a youngster, like a young player, you know, like 20 coming up through the ranks, something like that, but not Chris Wood for me, no.
How much do you think we'd get for Joe Linton, Holly? Roger Cook reckons, it's Donald Baines reckons we'll be lucky to get 10 million.
I think he's worth 10, that's what I said before, but I don't think you get much more than that. But again, you probably, if you wanted to sell him that bad, you'd have to drop your price a lot because of the wages that he'd be demanding.
Chris, cheers for that. He says the World Cup schedule for January, February 22. So it is going to be in the middle of our season, which means there's going to have to be either a break or some of the bigger teams are going to be playing without their, playing without their players. Oh no, he's now had to correct it. He says World Cup is November, December 2022. Wow, I mean Christmas time. I beggars believe it's the busiest stage of the season for English clubs.
Yeah, it is, and that's always my favourite time of the season as well because you've got loads and loads of games around that like Christmas Boxing Day period. But I hope they don't pause the season because that would just be a nightmare for me, to be honest.
Yeah, it would be a nightmare for me as well. I mean, it would be crazy. Although under the current manager, Southgate won't pick Newcastle players, and it doesn't matter who's managing Newcastle. I don't think we'll have England quality players by the time that World Cup comes around. I genuinely don't think so. Anyway, Julie says you've stepped down from your role as Chris Wood's fan club manager.
I don't think I was ever had that role, but I'd definitely be sacked by now if I did.
Stu is feeling very confident. He says the takeover is not far off, folks. No way the Premier League will want their corruption aired in public, which I think a lot more people are coming to that. I really do. I think a lot more people are looking at it and saying, essentially, yeah, it's so quiet that something must be going on in the background. So, we've avoided the T word for last week and this week, but it does have a feel that something's happening, doesn't it, Holly? Because there's absolutely nothing in the papers.
It does. I think that's a good thing because for a long time we saw so many leaks, and which isn't ever healthy in kind of legal stuff. But now that it's went quiet, people think now we're probably reaching an end game, which is well overdue. It's been over a year now, and I hope that we get an answer, regardless of what that is now. I think we just need to know where we stand so we can start preparing because we've been in limbo for so long. There's always so much uncertainty, and if it was to go through soon, then I'd be absolutely delighted. It's just hoping and praying that it can go through before the start of the season so we can recruit well.
Lots of people talking about what you mentioned about Harry Kane going abroad and Alan Shearer's record. Big Al's record is as safe as houses, says Kenny Ranson. Sir Bobby says Harry Kane is a poor man's Alan Shearer. Lots of people feel that Al's record's safe. So funny you should say that. But if he stays in the Premier League, I just don't think so. I think Harry Kane's got, as long as he stays injury free, I think he could easily beat Alan's record, 100%. But all about opinions. Roger reckons Kane might not have been match fit yesterday. I don't know. There is that possibility. Mad Mark says Calvin Phillips was excellent. I can see him sign up for Man City next season, replacing Fernandinho. And Chris is going through his World Cup info today. He says, and Euros info now. He goes, England on the wrong side of the draw this time round. No way getting past France, Germany and Portugal just to get to the semi-final or the final. He reckons that we'll get beat off Germany in round 16, as he calls it. So will be interesting to see. Quick update on the poll that we've been running tonight. The Andy Carroll one, which I put up earlier on, is conclusive. I think the majority have gone for no. He should not be given a new contract at all. It's fairly conclusive, that one. And Shearer is 82 votes. 82 of you voted for Shearer's hand being the best celebration. Ketsbaya's in second place, but only by 5. So if you want to change that in the next 5 minutes and get Tino's cartwheel into second place, then get your votes in now on there. So you watch most of the teams in the Euros, Holly. Who has impressed you? Who do you think will go on to maybe to win this?
To win the Euros, you know what? I think there's quite a few sides in there that's definitely got a chance. I've got the Slovakia game on now in the background, and I watched the first half fully, and I think Slovakia played well. There's quite a few teams that has done a good job. I still think, though, I'm going to stick with my original prediction. I still think it is going to be France that'll go and win it. I just think the quality of France's squad is absolutely unreal. I don't think there's any side that they couldn't beat on their day. So I think France is going to win it. But there is quite a few teams that I wasn't expecting to do as well as they have done, and they have impressed us. So I think there'll be a few outsiders that get far into the competition, but I think France is going to win it.
Yeah, I mean, France look good. It really is. It's a pretty good, strong competition. I think there's some good teams there. I think I disagree with Chris about England. I still feel that they'll get a little bit further than that. But Germany aren't the same Germany that they were, maybe 10 years ago. Belgium have got their last chance saloon squad now. They've had a great squad. But this is their last big hurrah, I think. You know what I mean? They're all starting to get a bit older now. And that's what happens. I mean, that's the hope. When you look at England's team, you look at England's team now and you think there's a lot of young lads in there. So even if they don't do fantastically well in this tournament, there's something to build on, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that's massively on our side, the amount of youth that's in that side. I think we've got the second youngest squad in the whole of the tournament. Which is brilliant, because what's to say that we couldn't go and win the next Euros if we don't do as well in this one? Whereas a lot of the sides do have slightly older, more mature players that are coming towards the end of their career. So there's always hope for England to do something in the future if this year's not our year.
What about the other nations? I mean, Scotland today were poor. I think we both commented on that. Did you watch Wales?
Yeah, I did watch Wales. They played better than I expected them to. I don't think they were too bad. Obviously, they got a 1-1, which I think was a pretty fair result, to be honest. But I don't think they were like world beaters or anything by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think they'll go very far. To be honest, I don't think they'll make it out of the group stages. But they were a lot better than Scotland, that's for sure, because I think Scotland's probably one of the poorest nations I've ever watched. And that's no disrespect to Scotland. I don't really have a problem with Scotland. Like, I know some England fans don't like them. I don't really mind Scotland. I'd like to see them get past the group stages and obviously have a game against them again, because it's always interesting to watch. But they're so poor. But Wales, I don't think they'll make it out the group stages, but they've certainly got more of a chance than Scotland will.
Obviously, we've had 4 players currently involved in the Euros. Ryan Fraser did get on as a sub today. We had a former player actually playing as well. Grant Hanley was there, not to mention, as I mentioned earlier, Steve Clarke and John Carver, manager and coach, of course, for the Scotland national team. Dubravka's in goal for Slovakia, Holly, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. So, like I mentioned, I watched the full first half. He didn't have too much to do. He made 2 good saves that I watched. The game's just ended now, 2-1 win for Slovakia. So, Dubravka, that's definitely a game I was going to look forward to watching. I think they're my second favourite team behind England, just for the fact that Dubravka's playing for them, because I absolutely love Martin Dubravka. To touch on Ryan Fraser, so embarrassing. You saw how poor that Scotland side was, and he couldn't get a game for them. And then he came on, and what did he do? Absolutely nothing. And when they were saying, "Oh, Ryan Fraser, the Newcastle man," I was like, "Please don't call him that." I was just hiding behind my sofa, like, so embarrassed. Like, my God, the sooner we get this guy out of the club, the better. I mean, I'd sell him to anyone. If Blue Star want him, sell him to Blue Star. Just get rid of him. Like, I've never disliked a Newcastle player this much for a long time. And people saying, "Oh, it's clear that he doesn't want to play for us." And I'm like, well, the feeling's mutual. I don't want him to play for us either. Like, just get out. He's not good enough for Scotland. He's not good enough for Newcastle. Just get gone. So embarrassing. And then I know Kraft's playing tonight as well, so I will be watching that game, and hopefully he does well.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Emil Kraft, of course, is a Swedish international. So he's playing, and Fabian Shaw played as well, didn't he? He did play for Switzerland when they drew 1-1. He played the full 90 minutes, but I think he was booked in that game. And there was a lot of talk about Kevin Mbabu as well, because obviously that was one that got away, but he's done really well since he left. So quite a bit made about that. I've got to be honest, but I didn't rate him at Newcastle. I didn't think he was that good. And not everyone settles into the English game either, which I think a lot of comments coming in before we finish. Jeff says, I enjoyed the Dutch versus the Ukraine. It was the best game so far. Captain Clifford says, Dubravka has just made a good save to keep Poland from winning so far. And Kenny says it would be good to get Scotland in the final. That would give us a chance of winning. I'm not too sure. Like Ravi says, has asked us a question. Says, do you think England will find it tricky to break down Scotland, Holly?
No, I think an over 40s five-a-side could break down Scotland, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be a hard task. I'd expect at least a 3-0 win for England. Yeah,
I can't see it. I can't see it being a close game whatsoever. I haven't watched Scotland today. The only thing that will stop it is if England don't have their, don't switch on from the start. And it is possible, but I think England will comprehensively win that game. Jimmy says Kraft has no idea what's going on.
Probably not. I don't know how he gets a game for Sweden, to be honest, but I'd love to see him do well.
Tom Dixon says Dunstan will have Fraser. Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad sign for Dunstan. Get rid of him. Hey, God. So, yeah, great stuff. We will watch the Euros with interest. By the time we are on again, of course, we will know England's fate. So, looking forward to next Monday already. Holly, great stuff. As always, thanks for coming on, and thanks for dropping onto the Euros special that we did at the weekend. If anyone hasn't seen that, it's well worth a watch. We look ahead to the Euros and talk about England's chances. But Holly, have a good week. Look forward to seeing you next Monday. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look